Today's guest is someone I've had the real joy of connecting with, both in person and virtually. Kate is a fellow Irish woman whose compassion, clarity, and purpose shine through in everything she does. She's a powerful advocate for inclusion in education, supporting children with additional needs, and standing beside parents and educators who care for them. Her work spans learning support assistance, parent advocacy, and systematic change, especially within international and private schools. With a warm, human centered approach, she helps families navigate the complexities of neurodivergence and school support. In this conversation, we'll explore the heart of her work, the realities of the education system, and the values and personal experiences that guide her. So, welcome to see me. Thank you for joining. What I wanted to start with is, could you take us through the heart of your work? What a typical day or week might look like, or is that predictable at all?
My weeks are pretty random for the last 3 or 4 years. So we founded an organization, myself and two partners, called Incluzun, and we work with families, with schools, with governments, pretty much everyone and anyone, organizations to help them be more inclusive, and we work with them in terms of consultancy, provision of manpower, provision of specialists, particularly learning support assistance. So our average week is doing business development, meeting schools, meeting parents, interviewing shadow teachers or learning support assistants, or speaking at events, hosting events. So it's very, very varied.
Yes, a lot, a lot to juggle. A
Yeah,
jam-packed calendar, I guess.
it is. It is.
So, what first drew you to this kind of work?
Um, I think I started out my career as a primary teacher in Ireland. I taught in Tipperary, Carlow, Gorey, and while I was teaching, I got really obsessed with kids who had special needs, and we were just developing in our understanding of differences at the time. It was probably 20 years ago, maybe more actually, and through my work in schools, I started to realize that the support we were providing really just wasn't enough. And the understanding we had as teachers really wasn't deep enough. So I did a degree in psychology. I started counseling. And then I did lots of certifications in different approaches like CBT, neurolinguistics. I did equine therapy. And I started to see how effective it could be to have a better understanding of all of those different approaches in teaching. Um, and then I came to the UAE 15 years ago as a teacher. I was an early years teacher when I came over first. And again, I saw that the majority of teachers, our understanding of different needs was really not strong enough. So we started doing kind of workshops. I established a forum for inclusion in education about 6 years ago. It's the longest running inclusion forum in the region, and we had huge uptake for the forum, and we could see the need for guidance and more understanding in this space. So 4 years ago, my partners and I, we established an organization so that we could tackle those gaps.
Wow. Wow, that is incredible. And I'm specifically interested in the equine therapy.
Yeah.
I absolutely love horses and riding, and no, I know the impact as well. Do you still
Yeah.
work with equine therapy, or
Unfortunately, not so much. When I came here first, the first year I was in the UAE, I was working with Al Dar in Abu Dhabi.
yeah,
And we actually set up an equestrian club at Al Farsan in Abu Dhabi. So that was like my dream come true.
yeah.
So I got to take off from work every Wednesday afternoon and just go riding with the kids, which was like brilliant. Um, and then I was riding quite a bit when I moved to Dubai. I was doing endurance training with some of the stables out in the village. But after about 2 years, the time commitment was just too much, and I couldn't do it. So I haven't really been riding much at all, and I haven't done any work with kids and horses for 10 years or more, which is a pity. But what to do?
Well, you're doing a lot. But you couldn't really, but hopefully someday again you can get back there.
It could
Um,
be. Yeah.
yeah, I guess I was curious. What are the main challenges you face, and that you've seen? I suppose specifically with families, and how do you overcome them?
One of the biggest challenges in the region as a whole is still basic understanding of different needs. In the UAE, particularly, we've got an awful lot of very young mums who have many kids, especially in the local community. You could have a 29-year-old mum with 4 kids who maybe 2 or 3 of them have different needs. And very often their understanding of what those needs are is very poor. And then they don't understand how to support them. They don't get enough support in the community, and they really struggle. They really struggle. And as such, the kids don't get to access the support services that they need. And so the the barriers to learning or life just compound and compound. And we really want to tackle that, because very often, with the right support, many of the barriers experienced by kids who have different needs can really be overcome quite well.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one of our main areas of development and mission, that we could help remove all of those barriers for both kids and parents.
Incredible, incredible. And like early intervention is just so important. I
Yeah.
know when we spoke before, you had mentioned the fact that you train teaching assistants and the importance there, and actually you'd been able to give me some valuable advice that I could give to some parents who are facing issues. And I wonder, is there any common issues that you hear from families, in regards to schooling or supports that, and maybe any solutions that you could probably give to our listeners?
Yeah, we're still seeing an awful lot of parents who are being rejected from schools when they flag different needs on registration. The government are doing their best to counter this. Like, we've got pretty strict policies from both Abu Dhabi and Dubai, outlining schools' responsibility to be inclusive, shifting from the social to, or the medical to the social model.
Yeah.
But there are lots of ways for schools to get around it. Now, I've worked on both sides. I work very closely with families, but I've also worked in managing schools. I was a group head for some of the bigger school providers here. So I can see the challenges that schools face as well in accommodating.
Yeah.
And very often, if you've got a very high number of kids with different needs, it can be to the detriment of the teachers, the kids, the learning. So schools have to be realistic in what their capacity is as well. So there's kind of two sides. Yes, we want to be fully inclusive, but our landscape is still very much developing. So the educational landscape, where you would, in say somewhere like Ireland, where we're quite advanced, you would have the HSC providing services, you would have therapists, you'd have very stringent training, not just post graduation, but within the BEd itself.
Yeah.
And some of the BEds in this region, there is no training for SEN. So we are sending very complex cases to teachers who have no experience, no training, and we expect them to accommodate them. And that's not fair on anyone either. So it's a quite a complex, messy situation where there are issues from both sides, that it's going to take quite a bit of time and quite a bit of development. There's no one fixed solution.
Yeah.
Um, but we can help, of course. We can help with training for teachers, and also supporting families in identifying the more appropriate schools. So, because I've done so much consultancy and I'm an inspector, I've seen the schools that are getting it right. Now, pretty much every school I've worked with are trying. They are genuinely trying. I've not come across a school that is like, no, we just don't want to be inclusive. They want to be, but they've got to be realistic. But people, so someone like myself or my partner Harmeet, because we've worked with so many schools, we can direct parents to which schools work best with kids who may have autistic traits, traits of ADHD, or maybe literacy barriers, and direct them in that way. And we're not the only organisation doing that. We've got amazing advocacies like the Butterfly, where we were at last week, all supporting families in finding the right school, because it can be very daunting entering into the market as a parent, where you have some schools that are really wonderful looking, they've got all the bells and whistles, they're really fancy, but how do you know that they are actually truly inclusive?
Yeah.
And then you have some schools that are really lower end, low fee, may not be rated very well at KHDA, but that are really, really inclusive. So it's not about how it looks, it's about the practitioners in the building, essentially.
And it is amazing to have them supports, because I know, speaking to parents, it's a lonely experience. You know, you do feel like you're the only one facing it. And to have people out there that can help guide you, I think is just so, so important. And people can be so misled with all the bells and whistles, because you think, look, I'll invest all this money and that's going to make, everything better. And that's really not the reality.
And that's another huge challenge that families face is the additional expense.
Yeah.
And we still have a huge number of schools that are charging anything up to 50% in additional fees for support for a POD, a person of determination.
Yeah.
And in my experience, pretty much all of those schools that charge additional fees do nothing more than the schools that don't charge additional fees. Pretty much all of them. Like it is, if anything, the ones that are charging additional fees are probably less inclusive, because the ones who that don't clearly want to welcome people
Yeah.
and want to provide the support as a given rather than as an add-on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really, really true. It's amazing to know that, because I never knew that. So thank you so, so much for sharing. Um, there was something I was going to ask on that. It's literally I've gone completely blank on it. I'm sure it will come back to me later on. Um, yeah. Oh, the TA support. So how would
Yeah.
that work for a parent looking, and do they need to go through the school directly through you? Does the school need to approve a TA, or how would they work with you there?
So there's a difference. A TA is generally teaching assistant employed by the school, and they work with the whole class as an assistant for everything.
Okay.
Then there's a learning support assistant, an LSA, or an IA. The terminology has changed in Abu Dhabi. They're now called an individual assistant, also known as shadow teachers. They're the assistant who will accompany a child who has individual needs, trying their best to remove barriers to learning. So it depends on the school. Some schools will come to us and engage the learning support assistants through our company. Um, but the majority are parents. But always, the school has to be involved. Generally, we would have an agreement done between the school, the parents, and us, and that would outline the expectation for the school and for the LSA, the expectation for the parents, giving targets, what do we want to achieve for the year for the child, and constant monitoring. So it can be quite complex at times, but it's different for every school.
And just on that, because when we spoke before, I think it's really important for parents to know the amount of training that your shadow teachers go on, undergo, um,
Yeah.
and why probably going with a reputable source like yourself is so, so important for your child.
But this was again partly why we established the organization. So I was managing a group of schools. We had, I think, 8 campuses, and across the campuses we had nearly 1,000 TAs and LSAs, all of whom were outsourced. And the LSAs, for the large part, had zero training, high school diploma only. They were actually forming a bigger barrier for the child to learning than they were support. And I'd seen this all over the UAE in schools everywhere. The access and understanding of what the LSA's role is can be very mixed, and very often they're seen as somebody to just control behaviors, whereas they can be one of the most powerful levers in accelerating the child to independence if they have the right skills. So the majority of the girls, predominantly girls, we've got probably 10% or fewer are men. The majority of our LSAs, we're very lucky. We've vetted and we have almost all degree holders. We've got a lot of teachers who, because of I suppose cultural barriers where they can't get roles as teachers because of their nationality. They come to us and we get really lucky because we've got really highly qualified, highly skilled practitioners. But we do training. So we've designed a series of different courses. We've got a certified 20 module LSA certified course in Arabic and English, and that's quite complex in terms of it goes through exactly what you need to know to be an LSA in this region. It's MENA specific. But we also do safeguarding and child protection because most of them have never experienced that. And when they come to schools, often schools are so busy, they overlook training the LSAs. And very often, if the LSAs are employed by parents, there's no obligation to give them any PD or certification. So they miss out on that. We also train them on this specific area of need for the child with whom they're working so that they've a deeper understanding of what those need, like what is autism.
Yeah.
The majority of LSAs, if you ask them in a school randomly, what is autism, they won't be able to tell you. But a lot of parents of autistic kids can't actually explain to you what autism is.
Yeah.
So it's really important to give them even if a basic, but a basic understanding of what is autism, what is ADHD, what is Downs, what are the different most common areas of need.
Wow. And just as you're saying that, so I guess when they're coming in, you're re-educating parents as
Yeah.
well, because you want that you want that support outside of the home and in the home. Do you find that when the LSAs come into schools that they face barriers with the teachers, or have you found that they work quite well together? The teachers want to learn about the student, or is that a struggle you face regularly?
Unfortunately, it's a real struggle. Like the majority of schools now are much more structured in the way that they work with LSAs, but some schools, like the teacher won't even engage with the LSA. Sometimes they don't even say hello to them. And an LSA can feel very, very isolated and very much on their own. And you find that a lot of the LSAs, when they come to us, they've been pretty mistreated. But once they come under the umbrella of an organization, it doesn't have to be ours, any of the bigger organizations, they kind of have that voice and that protection. Whereas if something goes wrong, we can advocate for them to the school. Or if they're not working well with the teacher, or if they don't feel like they're being shared the plans for the next week, they're often too scared to talk to the teacher because there's very much that there's an LSA is here and the teacher is up here. It's like the old archaic system we had at home in Ireland where it's like nobody would question the teacher, nobody would question the guard, nobody would question the priest. And we kind of feel like that with the LSAs and the teachers. They're like, oh no, I couldn't ask. Yes, you can ask, or we can ask for you. So it's empowering them to have the confidence to engage more and more. And almost always the teacher will engage and support. And once they realize, oh, okay, we can work together and I actually have another adult in the room who I can share some responsibility with, it works really well.
Just as you're talking there, I feel a little bit emotional because it's you really are truly inclusive, where, as you said, like these individuals, they're qualified teachers, but they're not accepted because of where they come from. Whereas you're creating that acceptance of, the person for who they are and what their abilities are, and that support and that advocacy. Honestly, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It really is fantastic.
We've had some of our LSAs have joined schools where the schools have then offered them a teaching position. And that's like
Yeah.
the ultimate in success for everyone really. It's like somebody has finally gotten an opportunity that they should have had from the start.
It must, your weeks, it must bring a lot of fulfillment. I know it's difficult what you're doing and the challenges you face, but there must be a lot of fulfillment in your work too.
Yeah, very much so. Very much, yeah. And we've hit 160 LSAs this year. So that's 160 kids who are getting support through our organization and 160 LSAs who hopefully are feeling a little more protected, feeling a little more empowered and upskilled, we hope. Because if you're on your own as an LSA, all too often parents don't pay and they have very little recompense. There's very little they can do about that. But we give them salary protection. We give them um, kind of, if anything happens, like if, for example, one of our LSAs fell ill a couple of weeks ago, and her health insurance had expired, and we covered her hospital bills. But if we hadn't been able to do that, like we just don't know what would have happened. She would have left. They wouldn't treat her when she got to the hospital first, actually, and they wanted a down payment, and she didn't have it. And what happens then if they don't have anyone to advocate for them? So it's kind of scary what's happening for some of them, but hopefully we can support. So if an LSA wanted to come work with us, they could reach out through our website, through any of our social media, and just pop through their CV. And we probably go through about 100 CVs every couple of days. We get a lot, but it's good to see that the interest is there.
Amazing. And parents, I guess it's the same if they need your support or
Same
school,
channels.
same
Yeah,
process. Okay.
yeah, absolutely.
And just on that note, before I move a little bit, well, well, no, because I'm on that note, I'll go that way. So families who feel lost, they go to you. What support would they expect to have, and what questions? Is there any other questions that you think today you could answer that are common?
Yeah. So one of
Double
the
question.
key areas is in terms of documentation for the shadow teachers, because each emirate, each school is different. Right. Some schools will insist on having a specific type of labor card. Some schools insist on having a specific type of insurance. And it can be really complex for a parent. Like if you've spent 3 or 4 months searching for a school and then you realize you need an LSA, but then they're asking for lots of documentation like a visa, labor cards and things. It's just additional paperwork and expense and everything. And it's quite a complex landscape. So when families come to us, we take care of all of that. And we know most of the schools now. We're working with over 400 schools, so we know which ones need which documentation. And then when we're finding the correct LSA to match with that child, we look not only at their skills to support the child, but also we look at, do they have all the documentation they need? Because some of them will ask for things like a police clearance from the last 10 years, if you could imagine. They will ask for police clearance for the last 10 years. And some of them, if they've been working in Kuwait or Saudi or some of the African states, they don't provide police clearance certs. So they cannot take those roles. So because we're doing it so long, we know now what are the requirements from different ones. Um, Parents also get really concerned around therapies. So because of that, we are launching a therapeutic center in Dubai this year. We've just secured our location. Yeah. And we hope to be servicing our families and possibly schools and other families, depending on capacity, by August, we hope. Fingers crossed.
Well, I'm just like, first, it sounds like such a personalized approach, which I think is so important. That the LSA is matched to the student. And that, but tell me more about the therapy center. What's
Yeah.
it going to look like? What are you guys going to have there? Yeah, very
It's
excited for you.
been
Well done.
in the pipeline for about a year. Like our families, the the families we're working with already have been asking us again and again, can you do therapies? Getting a medical license and all of that, licensing for a center in the UAE is a bit of a complex landscape.
Mhm.
So our third partner, Raza, actually owns a hospital medical center already. So we're going to put Incluzun under the licenses for his existing licenses. And we've got a space in Al Barsha. So it'll save us a whole heap of headache in trying to go out on our own. And it's much more safe because he's very well established. It's called the Health Bank Global, and they already have um, a lot of these services in existence. So we're going to add on speech therapy, occupational therapy, applied behavioral analysis, and hopefully, probably in another 6 months, we'll add on psych services as well.
Amazing. That's incredible. Well done. And
Yeah,
Barsha, I think it's a great location for a lot of schools. So convenient to go after school or
yeah,
um
yeah.
so amazing. Oh, I'm very
Good.
excited. for you. That's
Yeah, we're really excited and we'll focus the model on in-school delivery because one of the key concerns our families face is you've got your kid is waking up at 5 a.m. They're on the bus, they're going to school, they're in school all day, they come home, they then have to go to therapy. And that could be another 20-minute drive, half an hour drive, an hour in therapy, half an hour home. And they're not getting home until 7 p.m. Plus, they've got homework. And the children are absolutely banjaxed, they're just so tired. So we want to provide that support in schools. And when I was leading schools, I always had the therapies in schools. We would engage with specific centres or specific therapists, deliver the sessions on campus, and it was so much better for everyone.
yeah.
Because your LSA can go to the sessions with the child, they can see how the therapist is interacting, the kind of tools they're using. Sometimes the teacher can see, or the therapy can happen in class, in the mainstream classroom. So everybody benefits. The children aren't as tired, the parents don't have to travel to therapy, and the benefits are brilliant.
It really is, and that's what I was just thinking. The fact that you're doing it in school, you're educating the whole school,
Yeah,
and it's not separating or isolating someone. So it's a much nicer approach.
yeah, yeah,
Really,
it
really
is.
nice. Is there any personal story that led you down this route, or was it always just a passion? Was there any particular child that you'd worked with, or person, or that really, really felt that this was the direction you wanted to go in your life?
I've been asked this question a lot, and I think possibly one of the things that brought me to psychology was my dad, because I grew up in a small pub in a little village in Ireland, and my dad used to literally counsel everyone and anyone all day, every day. Like my most common memory is literally my dad sitting at the top of the counter with a cup of coffee, just chatting to people from 10 in the morning until 2 a.m. all day, every day. I mean, we knew the intricacies of everyone's marriage, their financial situations, what was happening on the farms, what was happening all over. Like, we knew everything. And dad would talk to people about their most deep, deep kind of issues, their struggles. And I saw that every day growing up and the effect that it had. Like, people would come to ask him for advice on everything. And that definitely set the seed and showed me how important it is to sometimes simply listen, because very often it's simply listening and letting somebody kind of verbalize what it is, but then gentle advice or insights into what something might look like or to approach things from a different way. Like, that's probably where it all came from. But I don't think I really realized that until I was older. um, then there was one particular child who, in my first year teaching, he had moderate to profound ADHD, but at the time I was in a rural village school. We didn't know what ADHD was, and to everyone else, he was wild and bold. And I just loved him. He was wild, but he was brilliant back. And I
But it
just
wasn't
wanted to
bold.
understand him more. And the more I learned about him, he was definitely one of the trigger kids who made me think there's so much more to this. There's so much more. Um, and he's probably 20 in his mid 20s now, I guess. And yeah, yeah, he was definitely one trigger kid who sparked that flame of knowledge, of desire for knowledge.
And what does he know? Does he know that he's
No, no, I've never told him, because it's a little village. I probably would be able to meet him when I go home. Like, I'm sure he's still at home.
wow, isn't it
I don't
amazing?
know if he'd appreciate me telling the world though that he was
He would
wild when
be
he was in third
inspired.
class.
Well, you said he that's what people thought. You understood him deeper.
Yeah,
Um, but I often think like teachers don't really understand the impact that they have on a child's life. How they're remembered later on. But again, the other way around, children don't understand the impact they
yeah,
have,
yeah,
and why. why someone may have gone a certain direction.
Yeah. Yeah, very true. And they can totally influence the way you go, can't they?
Yes, yes, change direction completely. I always say my daughter was like the final piece of a puzzle for me in really knowing who I am. And
Do you
yes,
see a lot of traits in her that you didn't recognize in yourself?
no, well, she's only 2, so but she does have very big feelings, very, very big feelings, and I do too.
Yeah.
No, actually, in fact, it was, and you know what, like I'd worked with, like, you know, the way you don't see the nose in front of your face. It was actually a girl I was giving advice to. She was 11 and had recently learned of her diagnosis, and her story was me. It was
Yeah.
literally after having my daughter and the hormonal changes, I started asking myself a lot of questions. Um, and then talking to her just verified it. It was she
Yeah.
literally was my story. Um, so yeah, that's how I came to know,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
discover. Um, so I think divine timing, was the right time in my life to learn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely. So, in your experience, what actually makes the school inclusive? And where there's schools that maybe don't have resource. Well, I'll ask you that first, and then I'll ask
Yeah.
the follow up question instead of doubling it.
It's all down to the practitioners on the ground. And a very big, significant part of that is the leadership. Like you can have very inclusive teachers, but if the leaders don't back you, it's very hard to operate inclusively. If you have teachers who are number one by a mile empathetic to needs, um, empathy trumps knowledge every day when it comes to working with Sen. If you have a teacher who can be um, patient, I suppose, patient and understanding, and then working with the child as much as possible. And then leaders who invest in educating their teachers in understanding what the different needs are. If you're a principal who can invest in specific training to understand the needs of those kids who the majority of need in your school. So, like looking at your inclusion register, seeing are we looking at majority learning disabilities, ADHD, ASD, where is the biggest area of need, and then really drilling down into that for your teachers. So every single person on the campus understands why Mahmoud has a meltdown at break time when the bell goes and they have to come in, that they know what it is and they can work with that child. Um, I think really that is where your success will lie, and to be empathetic with parents as well. We all too often see parents will come to campus when there's a problem. We rarely invite them to campus when there is something to be celebrated
Celebrate.
or successful.
Yeah.
And it's really valuable to remember those successes, even if it's something as small as, say, Mahmoud left the yard without having a meltdown for a day. Just maybe a dojo message, an email, something to let the parent know we had a successful day today. Because all too often, our parents of kids who have differences, they are bombarded with problems. We want to do our best to provide celebration and solution.
Yeah, and I imagine when they see a message coming from the school, there's anxiety around opening it and how I'm going to deal with this. And yeah, so
Yeah,
it doesn't seem like a supportive system, uh,
yeah,
where
yeah.
everyone working together makes all the difference.
It really does. It really does. The best schools are those who have collaborative meetings in terms of writing the IEP. So you'll see some schools will have really fancy, detailed IEPs that they have not consulted with the parents or the child on. And it doesn't matter how young the child is, the child's voice should be in the IEP, even if it's something as simple as, I want to be rewarded with Sonic stickers. That's the child's voice, and everyone will value the IEP a lot more if everyone's voice is in there, all stakeholders.
I'm so grateful for you saying that because I think people forget because children aren't even in their teens. I think as young as possible to have them have a say in their own lives is so important, to be able to think for themselves, because we think we know what they feel or what they need, but nobody can really truly know but that person. And that need and that support will change over time, and that's also okay.
Yeah.
But thank you for highlighting that, because, as you said, as early on as possible,
Yeah.
it's so so important. Um,
That can be like we've had schools, so we work quite closely with some schools to develop the inclusive plans. And one of the most effective tools is having the child having their own IEP with them as young as FS. And like teachers in the early years will say, well, how can they track their own IEP? If the child can put a mark on a piece of paper, they can track their own IEP. You can give them a really simple, like a goal chart or the reward chart with, it could be a symbol for their three targets. And you can orally reiterate those targets, like whether that is to answer when their name is called or to maybe write their name, whatever the goal is, that they have an understanding and they themselves can mark or put a sticker or put a highlighter every time they achieve that goal. They're seeing their own progress on their own IEP, monitor themselves, even if it's just three boxes that they can tick whenever they achieve it. That's as simple as it needs to be. But then the child themselves take ownership. The teacher will see the child celebrating so much when they achieve success, and it motivates the teacher to keep reiterating those goals and targets, individualized to their needs. And that it's so easy to do. And when you get to, say, middle and high school, secondary, the kids get so much more competent at self monitoring, and they get so much more able to implement their own targets and be aware of them. And those targets can get quite complex, like, say, focusing on a task for 6, 7 minutes at a time. To a typical child, no problem. But if you've got ADHD or you've got maybe a learning difficulty where tasks are really complex for you, that could be almost impossible. But to be able to achieve it and track your own success as a young adult, you become self intrinsically motivated to achieve those goals and continuously develop.
well, I also think it creates, like affirmation within yourself, instead of, because I think if you're seeking it elsewhere, I need the teacher to give me the sticker or my parent to give me the sticker. You're teaching them to seek that elsewhere their whole life, instead of saying, "Oh yeah, I did really well. That's six
Yeah,
minutes. That's amazing. Some days that's an achievement for me."
yeah,
Um, so, and I think that is so important, because raising someone to look for that externally, it's you're always going to seek that, and it's not beneficial. So that really is incredible, especially from as early as FS1. Like,
yeah.
and I think for
And
any child.
they can do it. Like we really underestimate how capable very young kids are. Like the first year I taught FS, when I came over to the UAE, I'd been teaching in Ireland, and we start them at 4 and 5.
Yeah.
So I was expecting quite competent young children to come into me. And as an FS, I had 2 year olds in my class. I had no idea what to do with them. I had no idea. And at the start, I treated them the same as I would have treated my 4 and 5 year old junior infants at home. And they were all brilliant. They were able to do it. And other teachers we had maybe 5 or 6 in the cluster, would come into my class, like, how are they doing that? I'm like, "Should just make them, train them. I don't know. They can, of course they can." And I think if you just set that expectation,
Yeah.
of course they can.
Yeah, no, I agree. Especially having a 2-year-old who shocks me on a daily basis with what she knows. We're already spelling, and unfortunately, my husband's from the UK, so I can't talk Askelga.
You can. Why not? Why not get her going?
Teach him the Askelga. I mean, there's some things that we might need to say not in front of her right now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like, you can't
absolutely.
have the chocolate. um, and she won't understand why. But yeah, I do think that, yeah, I think it's really important, especially from FS1. So I've gone blank on that, thinking about maybe I should teach my husband Askelga. He'll probably tell me to learn Italian or um, so I guess then, what do you see, or what is your involvement when children then leave school and then go into the university and the work environment? Where do you see we're at now?
Um, Most families who I've worked with, they will leave the country to go to university. We're quite a bit behind in terms of support for sending universities in the UAE, unfortunately. It's very unusual to see specific programs. Some universities are doing it, but there aren't really many alternative pathways for qualification yet. They're developing for sure, but like generally there aren't many. Um, in terms of employment, as you know from attending the butterfly, it's
Yeah.
pretty abysmal, unfortunately. Now, the government are doing huge, huge projects trying to improve on that. I really think there's not very many countries that are investing as heavily from the government side to try and make it happen. But again, it's a messy and complex landscape. And it's a landscape where all those auxiliary services are not yet in place. Like even in terms of physical accessibility. Like I had an accident, six years ago or so, and I was in a wheelchair for a few months, and couldn't get around anywhere. I couldn't go anywhere really. I definitely couldn't go anywhere on my own. My mum came over, my sister, and if I didn't have them, there's no way I would. I wasn't even able to leave the house. So, like, accessibility is a huge issue as a basic. Um, and then understanding of different needs. Like one of the things that really killed me when I was in the wheelchair was that people wouldn't talk to me. They would, if we went to a restaurant, if we went to a mall or anything, they'd look at me, they kind of look and go, and then they'd look at my mom and be like, "Oh, would the lady like some water? Or would the lady like to do this?" And I'm like, "Ladies, right here, I'm fully competent. Can like it's just some broken bones, I'm ready to go." But it's that almost that fear of how do you engage, and it was just a wheelchair. Now I've seen how people interact with people with visual impairment. If you've got profound autism and you're really struggling, that then you're definitely really struggling because the majority of, say, customer facing people, they have no idea what to do, and as a result, they'll stand back and won't do anything. And it's a huge learning curve for the whole industries, I suppose. It's all over, but it has to start at school. Like now that we're integrating kids with differences into the mainstream, seeing a child with a meltdown will not be such a big deal when they're
Hmm.
adults. If somebody has a meltdown, you're like, ah, okay, I knew two or three kids who used to have this in school all the time. It's not that big of a deal. And or even seeing physical differences, different impairments, it will become much more normalized. But we're looking at probably a generation or more before those kids who have been exposed, who have seen it and have been normalized, and then entering the workforce so that customers or the children with barriers who are now adults coming as maybe clients or customers into the workforce, that they would then not be so scary to people.
I'm interested. You said there you've seen people with visual impairment. So do you see that they're received different than, say, someone with a wheelchair?
Oh yeah, it's even more scary when you've got somebody with a visual impairment. Most people won't approach or talk to them at all.
Do you know why I ask? Because my dad's visually impaired, and in like if I go to the mall with him or anywhere I go, I think he loves coming here because it's quite VIP treatment.
Oh.
Yes, so it has been a very different experience for him. Um, when we go into the mall and it's like, oh, would Sir like to sit? Does he want this? Does he want that? Yeah, he's had. Fortunately, he's always been with us, but
Mhm.
um, fortunately, he has had really good experiences.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. So look, it's not everywhere, and it may be the places that we've gone to, but yeah, I know it's somewhere because he does love a little bit of special treatment. He won't mind me saying that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
he has received that, and even traveling back and forth with Emirates, he told us the story once of them finding him a free row and tucking him in.
Oh, oh, lovely. Lovely.
So yeah, he has had, but it again, it's probably where we're going, and
Yeah.
we've gone to.
Emirates is one of those organizations that fall under the Hidden Disability Sunflower, which is through Topland. And that has made such a difference in how customer facing practitioners can understand and work with people with different kind of disabilities. And I think Emirates have done that, and they're really working on it. Like if I'm with someone who has a lanyard, you skip all the queues, you get the VIP treatment, everything. And that's why I'm saying, like, there's so many initiatives underway to really make a difference. Like, this is it is the only country I know where if you have a POD card, there's so many services that are free, like
Yeah.
free. There's no other country where you have that, really, that I've seen, where you get, like, you can go to the zoos for free, you get parking for free, you get your DY, your RTA, everything is reduced, all once, just to support people who've different needs.
Yeah, no, it like for his experience, obviously he doesn't live here, but we went to the rugby sevens and we had a golf buggy drive us round. So
Brilliant.
you can imagine an Irish man thinking he was just royalty. And
Yeah, yeah, it's great,
a
isn't it?
lovely lady holding his hand. So, he'd love my mum won't mind me saying he'd love the female attention.
I bet, yeah, yeah.
American nurse on purpose. Um, the what I'd Catherine, do you prefer Catherine or do you prefer Kate?
I prefer Kate. My formal name is Catherine, but I do prefer Kate, yeah.
Okay, well, I'll say Kate then. The
Okay.
work you do is quite heavy and intense, and I do wonder how do you manage your own mental health, managing all that because I can imagine there's a lot of stories that I know you're trained in psychotherapy, so you can
Yeah.
detach from that, but still, it's a big weight to carry.
Um, I don't do much counseling anymore. Well, we counsel a little, I counsel a little bit with clients, but
It's unavoidable in that in your work.
unavoidable it is. It really is. Um, But when I was in full-time counseling, I had a partner counselor and we would meet probably once a month and just review cases together and go through, not just professionally, like you do professionally, to make sure that you're kind of giving the right advice from another perspective, but also just to offload. And that's really important. Anyone who's in any kind of caring or counseling role, that you have a partner who is also in that role, who fully understands, because your romantic partner, your husband, your partner may not understand that. Your colleagues, if they're unless they're in that role, may not understand. Whereas somebody who's in a mirror role, who can kind of offload with you and who you can help share their burdens as well, or their load. um I do a lot of training outside. I do a lot of sports, and that, I think if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have that kind of, like, brain decluttering. I run or cycle every day. I swim most days as well, and it's like just that half an hour of kind of clearing your brain of everything. Because, as you know, venturing out in business on your own, it's like you think you're going to go from a job where you're working long hours for a set salary. And you think, oh, I'm going to open my business, I'm going to earn a fortune and work less. And then you earn way less and you work way more.
Yeah, never a day off. Doesn't exist.
Not, like, there is never a day off.
No.
That's the thing. Now
It's
it's
just
more,
not more
I'm
fulfilling,
finding
right?
a lot more, because you are the driver of your own destiny, for
Yeah.
sure. And it's so much nicer to know that you're building something that you can create a legacy. Like you really can if you do it properly. Um, but it's like non-stop, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, I do a lot of physical work outside always, even in the heat. I have to get outside.
I'm the same. No, I exercise
Yeah.
is my
Are you
church.
running or cycling, or what are you doing?
Oh, well, I'm more into weights. I do plan to get back to a bit of running. Yeah, me and cycling, we just never got along too well. Or the swimming, but I'm working on it.
Yeah, yeah. No,
I know.
there's enough to do. The weights is very, very rewarding to see the changes in your strength and agility and everything when you're doing weights, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I learned to slow down. I used to do a lot of CrossFit and high impact, and yeah, it just
Mhm.
wasn't as kind to my body. Now, so yeah, I actually lifting sets of weights to me is very mindful. So it's the
Yeah,
one time in a day that I can just have a little bit of a switch off.
yeah,
Probably listening to one of my podcasts, looking for edits, so it's not a full switch off because there is no time. You know, you use every time moment you have as work
yeah,
to get
yeah,
things done. But yeah, no, that's mine. So I try to. But yeah, I the aim is to get back running
yeah.
soon, hopefully. You'll give me the motivation. Today's the day.
Wait until it cools down a bit.
Ah, no, if I agree to something, it just has to happen.
Do it. Have to do it. Yeah, yeah. Well, you can. It's not too bad at 5 in the morning. It's all right. It's not too bad.
No, yesterday evening was absolutely glorious in Dubai. I'm not sure how it was in Abu Dhabi, but it was so surprising.
Oh,
Um,
that's good.
yeah, for
When
July.
are we? July. We'll be starting to turn probably. No, not for another month, will we? We still have another another few weeks of the stick.
I know. How Irish are we? We always make it to the weather.
Always. Yeah. Always.
We're
Absolutely.
dying out there today. Um, so is there anything you would want to say to parents? Is there any piece of advice that you would want to give them and or an individual um
Mhm.
going through either looking for work or in the schooling system right now? Is there any hope that you would want to give them?
Um, I would say the key to success is understanding the condition, whether you're a parent or even an individual. Like so many kids are going through into middle and high school, nobody sat down with them and said, do you know what ADHD is? Like they're going to therapies, they're doing all this support. They don't very often they don't understand what it is. Like not just the expression of it, but what is happening in your brain chemically, physically, what is happening when you experience these different things. Because that understanding, from my experience, understanding ADHD particularly, like it's it's a hugely misunderstood condition.
Yeah.
The majority of people you talk to, I always ask when I do sessions, workshops around ADHD, I always ask everyone, do you think an ADHD brain is working faster or slower than a typical brain? And they all say faster. And then you have to explain to them the dopaminergic pathways, the deficits, like the process. And they like you can literally see them going, that doesn't make sense. And then you tell them, well, what medication do we give for ADHD? And they'll say Ritalin, Concerta, whatever. It's like, same action as cocaine. What? And you're like, that's what they do. So why would you give cocaine to a brain that's already working too fast? And slowly they start to unpack that understanding. But I would say 80% of practitioners I ask, whether they're teachers, counselors, sometimes therapists in centers, they all say, "Oh, the brain is on overdrive." No, the brain is not on overdrive. So, and that's just ADHD. Walk into autism, and you've got like a million different pathways that you can crack down that understanding. So, I think as a young adult, particularly when you can understand more about the processes and you can break down the biology of it, the physical actions that are happening, that can really demystify what's happening. And it can also remove that kind of, oh, there's something wrong with me, because very often kids will think this is something that's wrong with me. But if you break it down, almost like you're a mechanic working on a car, it's like, well, no, it's these nuts and bolts that are just not doing what they should be doing properly. And then it totally removes that burden of I've done something wrong or I've been made wrongly. That no, it's not. It's a function that we can work on to try and improve what it is. And that's for all of the different barriers. If we can understand what exactly it is. Um, and I think we like I majored in biology of the brain when I was studying psych, and it just blew me away. Like you can break every little thing down into individual functional parts. And by doing that, you really take away emotion and the kind of that fear response to knowing what a different need is. And sometimes it can be a bit technical, and some people think that it's not that valuable. But I really found in both therapy and in working with larger groups that when you show them the physical functions that are happening, you just demystify things quite a lot.
Yeah. And I think that that line you said, it, you know, it's not you who's the problem. You know, you, when you understand that it's not you who's the problem.
Yeah,
Um, like, you know, if I look back at me, all I ever remember was there's something wrong with me. I'm the problem. Why am I not like everyone else? But
yeah,
when you can actually understand the mechanics behind your brain, it's like, no, actually, you know, it's just the way I work, and that doesn't
yeah,
mean I can't learn another way. Like I absolutely can, but I'm not a problem. I just process in a different way, and that's
yeah,
fine.
yeah,
But yeah, I'm not the problem. So I think that's just so important to take away. And as you said, the education around understanding yourself, because
yeah,
then you're able to advocate. I can even advocate to my husband now. He probably gets a bit irritated from time to time, but you know, you know, I need instructions specific.
yeah,
I can't cope with vagueness. I can cope, but I mean, I can't understand it. I can't process it very well. It's just, yeah,
yeah.
misty for me. Same as the
And
math the other week.
knowing that probably makes your relationship so much better, because you know, like these are the requirements. It's like, what do you need to bake a cake? These are the requirements.
Step
With
by step.
these requirements, these ingredients, it will work out much better.
It really does. It really does. You know, and it really does. I'm sure he's he's probably just heard I'm advocating for myself, Tanya. Is the go-to line. But I need communication. You know, I can't have someone, I can't just, you know, someone, sometimes when people assume I know what they mean, I don't. I really don't. I really need you to tell me. It might look like I know, but I really don't. So that's something for me and him that we've been able to work on. And I joke
Mhm.
when I say it irritates him, but it's been so empowering being able to, I guess, practice that at home, and then being
Yeah,
able to bring that into the wider community when I'm with people, to feel comfortable to say, oh, I'm not comfortable here. You know, this restaurant actually is quite a sensory overload for me, and
yeah,
I'm not going to be able to sit here. Can we go somewhere else? You know, so it's yeah, it's been really really helpful, and that's just understanding how my brain works.
yeah. Yeah, it's so valuable, isn't it? Because it's again, kind of going back to that, the child is bold. It's just a lack of understanding. Like you could force yourself to sit in a situation where the restaurant is overwhelming. Nobody's happy. You're probably in a bad mood. Everyone's pissed off, and you just want to get out of there. Or you could say, I understand what this is. This is my reaction. Just move. Do something. And it's that's empowerment, isn't it? It's empowerment, and knowledge is it really is power.
And you know, for me, it also helps me suggest differences. I was in a restaurant that I actually liked the other day, and I have been avoiding it, but someone had wanted a meeting. I knew it was a quiet time in the day there. And afterwards, I spoke to the manager, and I told them why I don't go there. And they were like, tell me what we can do to make a difference. How, because you're not the only person. And to hear that, I think is so, so important, that
Yeah.
when you advocate, then people understand. They
Yeah.
start to learn. They can't know everything straight away, but they're like, okay, so the sound in here, the acoustics, some people struggle with this, but our food is
Yeah.
nice. The, you know, our staff are amazing, but this is removing some of our clientele. So making them changes to improve the acoustics would mean I'd go back all the time. I'd work from there.
Yeah. Yeah. And it seems like such a simple thing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Minor changes to
Yes.
make the whole world a better better place.
But even as I sit here, Kate, I have a lap pad.
Yeah.
So like I know what's going to keep me centered, what's going to keep me grounded because I've learned about myself. So it's just going back to what you said, how important it is for children to understand their diagnosis, adults to understand their diagnosis,
Yeah.
and parents, not just the assumption of what we think we know,
Yeah.
the reality of what that looks like and how unique it is for each individual.
Yeah. And not for parents particularly, not to be afraid to have that conversation with their child. Like we've so many parents like, oh no, we can't tell them they've got autism. Like, okay, just let them suffer in the world thinking that there's something wrong with them for 10 years. Like,
Yeah.
of course you can. The youngest, even very young kids, can understand. They can see themselves anyway when they're responding differently to things. They can understand that there is a difference, but curating that safety around talking about it and understanding what it is, it's so important. It's so valuable, and it paves the way for just an easier path through what can be a really challenging life if you've got profound needs.
Yeah. Yeah. And like just as you saying that there, obviously when I was growing up, there wasn't the understanding that there is now. Um, but one of my earliest memories is watching other children play to learn how to play and then just repeating that over and over because I didn't know how to naturally play. And so from the youngest age, I remember feeling different.
Yeah,
So if I knew why I was different, then I think children can receive information a lot better from a younger age than later on in life. So yeah, so for parents out there, it would have made such a difference for me, I think, knowing then why do I not know how to spontaneously play?
yeah, yeah. It's being brave as well as parents, isn't it? We have to be brave to embrace it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It is there anything that we didn't talk about? Is there anything we didn't talk about today that you think would be important to mention?
No, I think we got everything in there. I just hope that we can support families if they listen to this, that they'll get some safe messages out of it, that they can be empowered and maybe learn more about how to work with kids, hopefully.
Thank you so much. Honestly, it's been such a beneficial recording, and I really do think it'll make a difference. And I'm so grateful for the work you guys are doing. It's wonderful to have that service out there.
And you for getting messages out there and connecting people and reaching out. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of work to do in the region, but it's definitely going to be of value. I'm sure of that.
Persistence
Yes, exactly.
and Irish power.
That's it, girl.
Well, look, take care, and really thank you so much again.